Hey guys! Welcome to this week's review of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 14, Episode 7. Let's get into it. So, the episode. Actually, before I give my review, let me just say this. Now, with my last review, I was a little bit hard on Marlo and the comments that she made about Candy and Kenya, basically about them being a hoe. Now, I don't necessarily want to make a retraction, but upon reflection, and it has been brought to my attention, shout out to AT Alien Michelle Brown. If you are into Real Housewives of Atlanta, and if you're into Nene and other little bit of celebrity gossip, check out Michelle Brown, ATLN, ATLN. Her live shows are pretty good. And I like her because she's not so extreme. The only two people, well, there are a few people she's extreme about, but everybody else, she's pretty balanced and she's open to hearing other people's opinion when people call in into the live show. So go and check her out. She's great. But watching her show and having people call in, it brought to my attention, and I think I said it in my review, but I didn't put too much emphasis on it. To be fair, Candy, Kenya, all the other ladies have been calling Marlo a hoe as well. I mean, since she's come on the show, they have been calling her a straight up prostitute. Let's be real. Even Candy this season in her confessionals has been calling Candy a hoe. Like that's the joke when it comes to Marlo. She's a hoe. Ha 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 ho ho ho. Right? So reflecting upon that, I can understand if someone always wants to call you a hoe, you may jump at the opportunity to call them a hoe. But I stand by what I said last week. I just think it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know, maybe they say it so much that it has no meaning. It's not that serious, but I'm kind of overhearing about it. Like, okay, Marlo dated this 80-year-old how many years, how many decades ago? Like, can we move on from that? Candy's been married to Todd for how many years now? Kenya, I mean, Kenya's not a video vixen anymore, okay? Or like a booty model. Like, Kenya has moved on. All these ladies, I feel like, are in totally different places in their lives. So, it's just kind of irrelevant to bring these things back up because I feel like what does any of these ladies being a hoe, what does that have to do with anything that is going on currently? Absolutely nothing. It's just one of those cheap blows, and I rather have the ladies read each other for what's actually going on in the moment. Because it's like it's cheap. It's a cheap read. That's all. But I'll go a little bit easy on Marlo because they do it to her. So I don't know, because they do it to her, she feels like she's got to do it to them. I don't know. Moving on. So this episode starts off where it did last week with all the ladies getting together. Sanya was hosting an event where she's teaching them how to make Jamaican food, and smart Drew, shows up at the end when the food is done. Okay, so she didn't have to cook. And basically, Sanya, and Drew kind of get into it. I don't know. I wasn't paying too much attention, but they got into it. Something about Sanya not paying $25 for the makeup artist. And that's the thing about Drew, right? Like, she'll take a little petty thing and she'll make a mess and start spreading it around and start to make it look like, oh well, she didn't pay me and da 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 da. And it's one thing if, like, all these ladies, I don't know, if you work a minimum wage job, but even then, $25 is not like a big amount of money. But I'm assuming these ladies, even Drew, who's new to this thing, what? She has to be getting at least 100K this season. So the fact that you can't afford $25, nah, listen, I'm not counting anybody's pocket, but I think if you're making over six figures for such a small petty amount, if someone forgets to pay or didn't pay, like, I would just pay it. I wouldn't make a big deal out of it and make a scene. So definitely Drew is messy. Drew is definitely messy, but I think I said it last week. I don't think Sanya has like a legit reason not to like Drew, but okay, no, I take that back. I get it. I get when like I get that Sanya seeing how Drew moves. Like I totally understand why you wouldn't like her or why you would want to kind of distance yourself from that person because you don't want to be BFFs with the messy person that's getting into it with everybody else in the group. So, yeah, you may want to keep your distance. Now, did Drew do anything directly to Sanya? No, right? So I get from Drew perspective, she's like, "Well, I've only been a good friend to you." You know what I mean? But I think Sanya is going to learn in a show like this with like the group dynamic being what it is, you can't get involved in everybody's beef and everybody's drama or else you're not going to have any friends. So it's like it's difficult because in real life it wouldn't work like that. If someone's super messy, you wouldn't deal with them, period, because if they're messy to that person, then they're going to be messy to you. But because, this is a job, it's like you kind of have to somehow have that sort of cognitive dissonance where you're watching your quote unquote friend be terrible to everybody else, but you're still being friendly with them. Like in real life, the way that Marlo carries on, like I wouldn't trust Marlo. I wouldn't be friendly with Marlo because it's like if you're talking about everybody else like a dog, you're gonna be talking about me like a dog. But if it's your coworker, it's kind of like fake it till you make it. I don't know. I don't know. I still don't think Sonya and Drew have anything serious. They did have a little moment when Drew called Sonya a clout chaser, and Sonya's like, "Well, I have 6 Olympic gold medals, so I am the clout." Yeah, I mean, did she do what she did for clout? I don't think so. I don't think so. Like I said last time, because yes, I understand Candy and Kenya have the most followers, but Sheree and Marlo have a decent amount of following as well. So I don't see how that would hurt her brand. You know what I mean? I think I'm not sure if I said it in my last review, but it really could have just been one of those situations. It could have been the producer's fault, right? Because Sonia already had a group event. Plus she had her Mommy Nation event. So the producers are probably like, "Well, since you have a big group event for the Mommy Nation event, just invite 2 or 3 ladies to this thing. Don't invite everybody because I guess they're trying to like break up the scene. They don't want like 2 big group scenes. They want like maybe want like a couple of little events, and then usually how these things go is like you have the big group event towards the end of the episode slash the beginning of the next episode. So they could be telling her not to invite everybody. So we don't know what it is, but of course because they can't break the fourth wall, they're not going to let us know. Because I really don't see the reason as to why Sanya would actively exclude 2 of the ladies who are both raising children. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. So I have a feeling it's the producers, but of course they can't say it. So moving on, and of course Messy Drew doing her job, but like I'm not feeling any way about Drew bringing up what Kenya said about Candy because Kenya does the same damn thing. Um, Sheree does it. Everybody does it, right? And listen, if you say it on camera, at this point, I think it's just fair game. If you say something on camera to one of the ladies, I feel like they have the fair game to bring it up within the group. In real life, no. In real life, that would be super messy. You wouldn't F with this person. But when it comes to this show, for me, I think it's okay. Like, I'm not gonna be like, "Drew, she's so messy. What's wrong with her? Why did she do that? She's throwing Kenya on the..." No, no, no. I mean, they all do it at this point. It's part of the job. Okay? Um, Candy. Okay, so yes. Drew brought up Kenya talking about Candy and this vibrating panties business, and like Candy wanting them to all wear it as a group with each other's husbands there. And I personally feel like it's not really appropriate, especially the event didn't have anything to do with sex, so it wasn't a bachelorette's party or a bachelor party or anything of that nature. So it didn't really make sense. It was just blatant product placement and very poorly done. And that's the thing. It's like, here's the thing about Candy and watching back older seasons, especially watching the fallout between Phaedra and Candy. Now, don't get me wrong, Phaedra was hella wrong with those rumors, right? Phaedra definitely crossed the line. I'm not saying Phaedra is innocent or an angel, but I'm sorry. I think because of what Phaedra did, it sort of kind of overshadows the things that Candy has done to kind of like exasperate that issue with Phaedra. I feel like Candy has done some low down things as well. And this scene with Kenya is part of the thing that is part of the reason why sometimes I do like Candy, but sometimes I find her kind of annoying in the same way I would find Nini annoying. All of these ladies kind of have this in common, right? So when I see a housewife that is able to like genuinely apologize to somebody, I will always give them kudos. I think that is such an underrated and important trait to have as a real housewife. Like, you have to be able to find resolve and to apologize when you're in the wrong. Okay? Because you don't want someone just apologizing to shut everybody up, aka Ramona. We don't want that. But it's just so important for someone to kind of be able to reflect on themselves, realize when maybe they've crossed the line, and just give it a genuine apology, and not kind of just be so stubborn and drag things on and on and on and on and on. So the thing about Candy is she's she's not very good at giving apologies. She's very stubborn, and I do think she thinks she's always right. Like, I don't understand how, even if I understand if you're sex positive or whatever, but like, you can understand why other people, it should be in your realm of imagination to understand why other people may be uncomfortable with the circumstance that you put them in, wearing vibrators in front of not just the ladies, but the ladies' husbands on national television, going to a Broadway play. Like, to see a Broadway play that has absolutely nothing to do with sex. Like, they're not going to Chicago or something like that. Then I can understand. Like, so if I was in Candy's perspective, okay, for myself, I may not think it's a big deal, but you should be able to empathize with others that feel some sort of way. Like, you shouldn't gaslight them or treat them like they're crazy for wanting to bring up concerns. And another thing that Candy is doing that is kind of annoying me, it is sex shaming. As someone who is supposed to be so sex positive, I find it very hypocritical of her to bring up Kenya and the movie that she was in, Twa, which I didn't see, so I can't even really speak on how explicit it is or isn't. But I find that sex shaming, just because Kenya is okay to engage in explicit sex scenes for her job, where she is getting paid directly to do so, if she wants to make that choice. Plus, how many years or decades ago was that movie, right? But it doesn't matter. Even if Kenya filmed that film a year ago, it doesn't matter. I think in every unique situation, you have the right to consent or not to consent in certain sexual activities. And it shouldn't be just because you did this a year ago or a decade ago, then you should be okay with everything moving forward. And if you're not okay with it, you're a prude. it's just really inappropriate, and like I said, it comes off as sex shaming. And it's not like the ladies, or Kenya, it's not like Kenya in that moment was saying, ew, Candy, you're nasty for that, you're gross, why did you do no, I feel like Kenya brought it up in a very fair, appropriate way to say, hey, I felt uncomfortable with this. And if someone tells you they feel uncomfortable with this, you can't turn around and say, oh, well, you did this, so this should be okay. And like in my last review, I'll bring up the Nini thing again. When um in previous seasons, when Candy had a sex toy party and Nini felt uncomfortable. Now Nini was a lot more judgmental about it. Like, we will give you that. But Candy brought up the point, well, you were a stripper. And Nini said, well, yeah, just because I'm a stripper doesn't mean I want to you know what up my you know what. Right? And that's what I think. Like, everybody is different. Everybody is different. And just because this is the way you go, that doesn't mean everybody has to go the same way. So I do feel like Candy can be very stubborn. When she thinks she's right, she thinks she's right, and she's not very good at empathizing with other people and taking on different perspectives. And this is kind of aligned with what Todd is saying, what was saying about her. Now I know, like, people want to go in on Todd because he makes less money, and some people feel like he has been able to have a career off of Candy's name and yada yada yada. And I'm not going to necessarily say that is true, but I also empathize with him and kind of get what he is saying. Like, if Candy is the quote unquote star of the family and everybody is kind of eating off her as well, and she's the one that comes first all the time, I can imagine being in that situation. You may not always be sensitive to everybody else around you because it's like, well, they need you, right? And it's very easy to kind of be like, oh, well, what's good for me is good for everybody else, when yeah, that may not necessarily be the case. So I'm kind of disappointed in Candy and how she handled that situation. But moving on, I hope by the reunion, especially, I'm pretty sure she is receiving the backlash from the audience. I think a lot of people were kind of turned off by this, because it didn't even feel like fun. It just felt like blatant, cheap product placement. Right? It didn't fit properly into the scene. It wasn't integrated. Plus, yeah. So I think with the backlash from the audience, I think hopefully by the reunion, I do have faith that Candy will be able to kind of self-reflect on her behavior and be like, you know what? I I was kind of I was kind of harsh, and I think part of the reason why Candy is so stubborn in this, or she has almost like this wall up, I guess because of the allegations that was made against her. She is super sensitive to anybody, kind of, even if they're sort of inferring that she is sexually deviant in any way. It's probably very triggering for her. So her response is just to be super defensive, like, oh, well, you did this, what are you talking about, man, you're getting my blood pressure high, and da 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 da. Like, she just wants to dismiss it, which ironically, counterintuitive, it's making her look more like a predator, honestly. Her trying to avoid it is actually leading her directly to the thing that she's trying to avoid. So it is what it is on that front. But, like, I don't believe that, like, she in no way was trying to what Portia Williams, especially when Portia Williams was a very willing and active participant. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Moving on. Okay, so the dinner is over, yada yada yada. Now, let's move forward with Sheree. Sheree met with her life coach, which who I like her life coach, right? Sheree's talking about Tyrone and the experience, and I feel like the life coach told it like it was. Um, basically that, listen, it's very easy for Tyrone to give you all the attention in the world when he's sitting in a jail cell and he doesn't have much things going on in his life. But now that he's free and he's out there in the world, um now we're seeing his real character. Now we are seeing, is he really devoted and committed to making this relationship work, or were you just something or somebody there to kind of pass the time? And the life coach spoke about Sheree being a fantasy, and then on top of that, her being a reality television star. So on the surface, that may seem really attractive to certain people, but at the end of the day, listen, you shouldn't have to guess or wonder if someone really likes you or someone's into you. If they're into you, you should just be able to tell and know. I think someone that cares about you would not embarrass you on national television that way. Especially, it's not like back in the day where you had to send a courier pigeon or something, or someone had to kind of run and send a letter or whatever. It takes 2.5, less than 2.5 seconds to text, I'm not coming because of XYZ. This whole situation is very odd to me, and like I said in my past review, I feel like there is some information, there's something there that we're not getting the full story. We're not, because I really don't, unless this guy is a complete asshole. And if this guy is a complete asshole and there's nothing to this story, Sheree shouldn't even be hesitating. The fact that he asked her, well, are you done with Tyrone? And she took a deep breath. She'd even say no. She'd even say no. Like, I just don't understand. I understand, but I don't understand at the same time. Like, how can how can you forgive this guy? Like, clearly this guy, there's just so many red flags about him. And like, Sheree is just too grown for this. She's too grown, too beautiful, has too much to offer the world to kind of wait around for this guy to figure out what he needs to figure out. They're not even living in the same state. It's one thing if they're living in the same state, but like, he can't even travel to Atlanta, it seems. So like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna travel to Philadelphia? I'm not sure if it was Philadelphia. Let's just go with that. You're gonna be traveling to Philadelphia, and then you travel all the way to Philadelphia, and this guy doesn't show up. I mean, the decision, it's embarrassing. I'm sorry, Sheree, because this guy literally just made the decision for you, whether this relationship is gonna work or not. He made the decision by not showing up. So there's not even any room for you to be like, well, I don't know, we'll see. Because now you're pretty much completely relying on this guy. And you're communicating to this guy. He can treat you any type of way, do whatever he wants, and you're gonna be there waiting for him. He can literally be in jail, and you're gonna be waiting for him. You're gonna be waiting for him. So he's gonna have you around when it's convenient, when he probably has a business or something he needs to promote, right? He's gonna come around, but like, I don't think he's gonna be the partner that Sheree wants. I truly don't. But at the end of the day, Sheree is gonna make the decision she's gonna make. But like I said, I feel like something is really missing in the story. Something's off here. Something's off. But moving on. Well, one thing, the life coach is always also like, Sheree, focus on your business. Like, make that your boyfriend, make that your baby. I don't know. I guess she wants to release athletic wear, but like, why not? I don't know. Why not a workout video or something? Because since Sheree is very much into fitness, like, I don't understand how Drew is doing it, drop it like it's hot or whatever. It should be Sheree doing something like that. Like, clearly, Sheree and apparel is not. It's not the business for her. It's not the business for her. I don't know. I guess there's just like a lot of pressure on these shows to have a product and have something to sell, but it has to be right for you. Like, I feel like Sheree Moore could have done a workout video, but but there's enough of those flying around out there. Okay, moving on to Marlo and her charity. What her charity? I think it's called Glam It Up, and it's basically for um children that are in foster care. I think young girls that are in foster care. And from what I got from it, like Marlo and other volunteers will take the ladies out to dinner or shopping or just certain life experience to the movies or things of that nature. And kudos to Marlo for doing that. Kudos to Marlo for giving back and mentoring young girls in the foster care system, right? Because it's hard. It's hard when you are not growing up with stable adults or parents in your life to help guide you and love you, care about you, like you, educate you. So the more adults they have in their life giving back and showing them different experiences and opening up their minds, the better, because not everything is going to be perfect. Not all the adults in their life is going to be perfect, but if you have one or two that are there and they can help mentor you and guide you and encourage you and build up your self-esteem, that can make the world of difference. It really can. Because if you're just always surrounded by people that look down on you and don't think you're good enough and don't think you can achieve anything, or just don't even show personal interest in who you are as a child, and focusing on like what your gifts and what your talents are and encouraging you to develop those innate talents and gifts, like if you have no one in your life that's doing that for you, it can be very, very hard as you go into adulthood. It may be very easy for you to follow down a certain path because you feel like, oh, well, that's all I'm good for. So, the more adults in their life that can show them different avenues and really can help build their self esteem, the better. So, I love what Marlo's doing. Kudos to her. Speaking of Marlo, uh, fast forward, we have a scene with Candy and her husband Todd, and Candy wants to kind of give away some clothes for Marlo, right? For her charity, Glam It Up, to give to the young girls. Now, Marlo, when Candy called Marlo, Marlo was pretty much like, "Hell no." She didn't say hell no, but she gave a long pause and she said, "Look, when I was in foster care and I would get hand-me-downs, I would feel bad about it. It would make me feel sad. So, I like to take the girls shopping and give them new clothes." Yada yada yada. Now, okay, as a kid, I would get hand-me-downs from my cousins, but then I was not in the foster care system. Um, it didn't make me feel bad to get hand-me-down. Now, I was teased a bit for the hand-me-downs because the clothes were, they were a little bit behind. I was wearing like 90s stuff in the early 2000s. I was wearing the ugly Christmas sweaters unironically. It's funny now, if I were to wear them, they would be so popular. Not so popular in middle school. So I can understand how it can feel if you're wearing hand-me-downs, especially if the clothes are not really up to date. And kids can be cruel. Like if you stand out and you're different in any way, you may end up getting teased. So I get Marlo's point about like at the end of the day, this is Marlo's charity, right? So she gets to choose what she does with her charity. And if what she chooses to do is to take the girls shopping for them to get new clothes, I 1000% see the value in doing that for them. And Marlo has 100% right to be like, this is what I'm going to do with my charity. And I don't think anybody should feel some type of way about that. I truly don't. There are plenty of other charities and things out there where you can donate your clothes. That already exists. So if Candy wants to do that, there are 101 options. Hell, there's probably 1,001 options for her to donate her clothes to other places. I don't think it's a moral judgment either way. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think to donate your clothes, like donating your clothes is actually a great thing to do, and it's good for the environment. And yes, someone like Candy who is wealthy, her clothes most likely are going to be high quality. Chances are she's probably, like she said, she probably wore them once or twice. She's not wearing them like that because if you're in the public eye, you can't, especially when you're filming a show, you probably are not, it's probably not encouraged for you to repeat outfits too often. So chances are you're going to have a lot of clothes, or you're going to have a lot of things sent to you. So the stuff that these girls potentially would have been getting would be good quality stuff. Now, I'm gonna be real. From the clothes that we've seen, I wouldn't want any of them. Okay? I wouldn't want any of them. They wouldn't be for me. And Todd agrees with that. But that's the fun thing with getting hand-me-downs or going thrift shopping. Everybody's sense of style is different. It's more of the hunt, kind of digging into things and finding what works for you. What you like, what looks good on you. So, it's good for the environment to donate clothes, and people can just pick out what they want and what they don't want. Maybe the fabric can be recycled to make new clothing items. So I don't think it's bad for what Candy was doing. I don't think it was Candy being cheap. I don't think like Marlo should be mad at Candy for thinking that it would be a great idea to like donate some hand-me-downs, right? But nor do I think Marlo's being bougie or extra for being like, I would like for my charity to take these girls shopping. I would love to give them that experience. And it's a great experience. Like, yes, if you're used to only getting hand-me-downs and you don't have that many experiences of like you going to the mall and you picking out what you want to wear and finding something, and like just that experience could be very positive. So kudos to Marlo for providing that to these ladies. So the whole thing between Candy and Marlo, I think that's just a misunderstanding, and hopefully it doesn't blow up into a bigger deal. So Kenya and Sheree, they meet up for lunch, and Kenya's talking about the struggles with her business, and so is Sheree. Like, I can't even imagine how hard it is to have a small business. I don't know if Kenya Moore hair care would be considered a small. No, I would consider it a small business, especially since she's saying she doesn't have a team. You would think at this point she would be a little bit more established, but then also I can imagine during COVID and everything, it has thrown a lot of people off. And with small businesses, it can feel like you're putting out like 1,000 little fires on a daily basis, and if it's just you doing it, it can get overwhelming and you can find yourself in deep waters. And Kenya spoke on the fact that because she was having issues with Mark, she was probably spending more time trying to figure that out and deal with that, and not necessarily making sure her hair care line was doing okay, right? Because yeah, with a small business, you really do have to be on top of things, especially if you don't have a strong team. But even if you have a strong team in place, you still have to be on top of things on a daily basis. Because if it ain't, I don't know. I mean, hopefully, maybe in the near future, I don't know. I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing if like Pantene or what's Procter and Gamble buy her out, right? And she gets a lump sum of money. Because, yeah, like managing you really have to be committed to what you're doing. But I hope her hair care line is doing better. Um, there seems to be, I think there were relatively good reviews about her products, so hopefully she can overcome that. And with Sheree, I think Sheree always tries to do too much. Like, you're gonna have a clothing line with the tights and the sports bra and the sweater. Like, that's already a lot of stuff. Then she was saying, "Oh, well, I try to do yoga mats and mugs and t-shirts." It's like, just find one thing and do it very well. Find one thing that you can do it very well, focus on getting that off of the ground, and then once that is established, then start to add more. But if you're trying to do a gazillion and one things, plus you don't have the connections within the industry and you find yourself keep getting screwed over, it's like maybe scale it down just a tad bit. But like I said, I can imagine that it's very hard, especially when you're working with like factories, or like if she's working with a production company, or I don't know what you would call it, a factory to manufacture, or a manufacturer, that's what you would call it, to manufacture her clothes. And you have to be you have to have some business intelligence, I can imagine, because there are people out there that if they can screw you over and make a quick buck off of you, they're gonna do that. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get screwed over really fast. So yes, having a team is really important. Like, if you don't know how to do something, you better find somebody that does know how to do it, and also takes pride in doing a good job, and it's going to be loyal to you, right? It doesn't help that Sheree has a reputation for not paying people. I don't know how true that is, but it's like, are you kind of wanting people to do the work for free and you're not like adequately paying them because you're trying to save money, up front? Because, like, that's going to cost you in the long term. It's like, it might as well maybe put a little bit more money investing into people that are legit versus trying to go the cheapest route, because sometimes going the cheapest route, those people are the ones that are going to try to cut corners or find a way to get over on you, because like that's how they bring you in, by their cheap prices. You know what I mean? But I'm not a business person, so don't look at me. Right? But good luck to both of them. That's all I can say. It's definitely, I think a lot of people can relate to starting something off for the first time. There's a lot of growing pains and things don't always work out right away. But you know what? It's a learning lesson. You grow and you get better and better. Moving on. So Kenya talks about a little bit about Marlo, how she feels like Marlo is trying to make her look bad. And like I said before, I think Kenya was legit sick, because you can still see she is sick in this episode. So she was not faking it. And Sheree didn't play the bone collector this episode, because Sheree could have really went in about the bunch of stuff that Marlo was saying about her, because that definitely would have shook things up. But Sheree, she kept quiet this time. And let kind of Kenya vent. And then Sheree ultimately was like, well, essentially the way that Marlo was telling the story, she made it seem worse than it was. But like, now seeing you and how you're still sick, I legit believe that you were not feeling well. And I don't think you were trying to be an asshole, which I really don't think Kenya was. I think Kenya really did want to be there. And Kenya, like I said, is very professional. She's not going to miss a scene for no reason, especially since she didn't have beef with Sheree. She didn't have beef with Marlo. So she had absolutely no reason to just not come, in my eyes. So I don't know why Marlo is kind of using this as an opportunity to kind of hit Kenya below the belt. I don't think Marlo is being fair in this situation at all. At all. So, fast forward, all the ladies, they meet again. I told you, this is the structure of the show. By the end of the episode, they're all meeting for dinner, and then the beginning of the next episode is them still eating dinner. But they finished the dinner this episode, so a different structure completely. So let's get into the fights. Marlo versus Kenya. And first of all, this whole hand me down clothes thing. Like I said, Kenya was kind of calling her out, saying that like you're putting too much value in clothes and yada yada yada, and I wore hand me downs and blah 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 blah. Um, I don't think clothes are necessarily bad. There's nothing wrong with putting for some people that's the way that they express themselves. Right? Now of course is Marlo projecting maybe a little bit of her trauma and her being bullied, blah blah blah. Sure, but I think also Marlo is also projecting her love of clothes. Now, for some of the girls, it's not going to have that same meaning for them to go shopping and to buy new clothes. They may just be like, whatever. But for some little girls out there, that may be a way for them to feel a little bit better about themselves, maybe express their individuality, give them a voice through their aesthetic. And that's what Marlo was able to do. And now look at Marlo. She's known for being a fashionable girl. Like, we can put a value on clothes and say, well, it's not that important and it's not that serious. But like, if it's able to give somebody joy and happiness, then why not? And if Marlo can share that with a little girl, why not? I mean, there's plenty of charities out there that specialize in in different areas. Like, um, maybe Marlo's experience, her charity will be a different type of experience versus maybe a charity that more focus on athletics. There are going to be different things that are going to be valued and whatever, but like that's the beauty of having a variety of charity and organizations out there, is so that these little girls have options and they can find what's right for them. So I don't think it's a moral standing like, oh, you shouldn't teach the girls this, nor do I think having hand me down clothes is necessarily a bad thing, because Marlo was kind of looking down on hand me down clothes. But then I do get what she's saying. Like, if that's the norm and that's what you usually get, and I can totally relate to Marlo on being bullied because you don't have the latest fashions. Now, that helped me in a way, and I think it also helped Marlo, because when you're bullied for the clothes you wear, hopefully you're not bullied too bad. But what that teaches you, or what that taught me, now when it comes to my fashion, I would say, I don't want to say I have a unique sense of fashion, but when it comes to clothes, I'm not so self conscious about standing out and looking different, right? Because as a kid, I stood out because I didn't have a choice, because these are the clothes I had to wear, so those were the clothes I had to wear. So now that I have more of an option when it comes to my style as an adult, I love color. I love color. I love mixing different patterns, and I have my own sense of style, and I don't feel insecure about standing out. And that's the way I express myself. So I can definitely relate to Marlo in some of the things. So that's just an example of like, through trauma, you may learn certain lessons that you may find yourself being actually more aligned with your purpose, or finding out kind of what your superpower is through going through trial and tribulation. So, yeah, that is a part of life sometimes, to get bullied and, go through hard things. But I don't say it callously, I truly don't. But I am grateful for that moment, because like I said, at least when it comes to clothes, not much else, but when it comes to clothes, I'm not as self conscious about that, because it's like, once you're the outsider, once the worst thing that could possibly happens, is like you're less afraid of being judged by other people, you know? But like I said, if Marlo can provide that experience for a young girl, and the young girl, like, that's what she's drawn to and she likes, and it gives her self-esteem, then that's okay. Like, Marlo is allowed to set her own standards for her charity. So it's not a moral standing either way. It's just not. it's just different. If that makes sense, I don't know. Please forgive me if it doesn't. So Kenya also called Marlo out about her feeling like Marlo was coming for her, which Kenya was right. And they had their little back and forth, their little petty moment. Marlo called out her wig, which I don't feel too bad about Kenya because Kenya is always calling out Marlo's wig and about Marlo not having edges and about her having long hair. So it's like, it's just cheap shots and they do it to each other, so it's hard to really pick a side. But Marlo was overall wrong in this situation. But I do like how they were able to dead the argument. It didn't drag on too long. And if you know anything about Kenya and Marlo, they have definitely come a long way. Now, I don't know how it's going to go down when Kenya watches the show back. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to move past it as quickly, but for now, they're good. And Marlo was like, I do love you, Kenya. It's just, I felt like you were faking it. Da 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 da. And it, if you know this person is, Kenya is known to tell fibs, can we be real? And Kenya is known to do stunts, right? So I guess it kind of takes some time, especially if you're coming back friendly with this person and they're known to do certain things. It's like when they do certain things, you're less likely to give them the benefit of the doubt and you're more likely to assume the worst. But if you are trying to rebuild the friendship, you kind of have to give them a benefit of the doubt a little bit. And the girl is sick, so like, come on, Marlo. But whatever, I'm glad they were able to move on. Um, they also brought up Candy not being a good friend, and I'm still waiting for this to become like a bigger thing. I think this is like a slow build up. I'm predicting Candy not really taking ownership. I feel like we'll get a little bit of ownership from Candy when it comes to the reunion because like I said, by then she's going to get a bit more feedback from the audience. And if the majority of the people are saying the same thing, then it's like if it's one person saying it, you can kind of brush it off. Two people saying it, you can ignore it. But if it's like millions of people saying the same thing, you do have to take a moment and reflect on your behavior and ask yourself, have I been being a good friend? But I just think that Candy is super duper busy and she has a lot of things going on, and I don't think she's really friends with some of these ladies like that. So I think it's kind of easy for her if it's not related to work. It kind of just flies over her head. Yeah, because she barely has enough time for her kids and her husband. I don't know how she's going to pencil in a charade. So moving on from that. Then Sonia, and Drew get into it again. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is like the third time them getting into this argument, and to be honest, at this point, I have no clue what this argument is about. I don't even know why they got so heated. Now, I'm sorry, I'm gonna kind of defend Drew. I know Drew can be annoying at times. She can be a little bit extra. She does make up her face a lot, but like, I can be kind of the same way as well. Like, you just have, if your face is very reactive, you don't really control it. It just, your face speaks without you speaking. That's part of how you communicate. And I can understand how some people can say it's a little bit flippant or a little bit rude, but I don't know. I just feel like it's nitpicking a little bit. I don't know. I just feel they're nitpicking on Drew. Because I don't get what Drew did so wrong where Sonia kind of has to disinvite her to stuff. Like, I do think it is kind of rude. Like, so because Sonia felt bad for not inviting Sheree and Marlo, Sonia has this thing with Nike that's coming up in Portland. So she invited them as well. I don't know if she invited just Marlo and Sheree or she invited all the ladies, San Drew. You know what I mean? But I just think that's rude. Like, why invite everybody else and not or uninvite Drew? Like, I just don't think Drew did anything at this point that was just so foul to her. I really don't. I don't see anything where it's like this beef needs to be going and going on, like how many episodes now? It's kind of ridiculous. Like, just get over it. I really don't know what they argued about. I truly, truly don't. The makeup artist thing and whatever. If her, I don't know. I don't know. Especially since Drew and Sheree seems to be in a better place. So like if Drew and Sheree are in a better place and they are getting along, and if you were originally mad at Drew because how she treated Sheree, I think it's just time for you to move on too. I don't know. But it is what it is. And I'm done talking about those two for now. And I will be done talking about them for next week's episode. So I really hope they don't get into a fight again. Not about the same shit because I'm over it. I'm truly am. Marlo, moving on to Marlo, her sister, and her nephews. It's really, really sad. And generational curses are so true, but I do believe in good faith that by generation to generation, things get a little bit better. It is sad that Marlo's nephews are going through a similar thing with their mother as their mother went through with, and well, the nephews are going through a similar thing that Marlo and her sister went through when it comes to the mother and drug addiction. But we can say, at least with Marlo and her nephews, it's like they are just a little bit better off. You know what I mean? Because they have someone like Marlo to step in and take care of them, and Marlo seems like a great aunt. From what we see, she may not be perfect, but she seems like a great aunt. She seems like she really loves those boys. So they are given a slightly better opportunity. And then hopefully by the time they have kids, they've learned from the mistakes of the past, not only of their past, but their parents and those that came before them, so that they can make better decisions. And little by little by little by little, as generations start to move forward, things will improve greatly. It's just that in the moment everybody has to do the work to kind of pass the torch to the next generation, if that makes sense. It sucks. It sucks with drug addiction and especially mental health. Um unless they're like going to self harm themselves or harm other people, like unless it's an extreme case, it's really hard to force people to get help unless they want the help themselves. Like if Marlo's sister doesn't want to get help, if doesn't want to go to rehab, doesn't want inpatient, there's nothing that they can really do. They can't force her. Marlo can try to get a conservatorship, but I can imagine she's going through enough taking care of the kids, and then on top of that to get a conservatorship, because I think that there are a lot of red tape and barriers into getting that, which is a good thing. Like Britney Spears, for example, has been in the news and as of late, and like how shady and blah 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 blah. But that's a different story, right? But there's a lot to get a conservatorship, so if the sister is somewhat functioning, then it's kind of like you can't really make a case. She's like functioning enough to make her own decisions, but she's not well enough to make good decisions. So it's hard. It's hard because there's nothing that Marlo or her or the nephews can do at this point. You just have to be there as you can be there, be supportive, and pray that eventually the person on their own will decide to get help. But the sister wasn't too happy. I am actually curious if the sister was a little bit unhappy because she was being filmed, or she knew that her sons were being filmed and she didn't want to be on television. I don't know. I don't know. My little spidey sense is tingling, and I feel like that's part of the reason why she got upset. Um, I will give kudos to Bravo because it seems like they were filming, and I'm glad that they didn't show the clip. They didn't show the clip of Marlo's sister freaking out, especially with the boys there. We didn't need to see that. It's none of her business. I think we got the gist of the story with Marlo relaying it situation. We didn't need to see the mother like that, or whatever. So I'm really happy that Bravo decided to cut out the scene. And now I don't know, maybe they didn't get permission from the sister anyway, so they weren't gonna use it. So maybe I shouldn't give them too much kudos. But if they had a choice, I'm gonna give them kudos for not showing it, because we don't need to see that. It was really, I really felt for Marlo and the boys, because it's really sad, because I understand what Marlo was saying, where it's like, if she goes to if she gets inpatient care, then the not the ladies, the boys can see her a little bit more frequently, and maybe it would be a slightly better environment to visit their mom versus prison. You know what I mean? There's less restrictions in that sense. So I really feel for those boys. I really do, and I hope that they're doing well. They're doing well. I can relate a little bit to their situation, and it's really sad. It is. And there's nothing anyone can say or do to kind of take away that hurt. But like I said before, with Marlo and her charity, it's like, it's just important to have the more adults in your life. They may not be your parents, unfortunately, but the more adults in your life that are there, that love you, care about you, like you, are really involved and invested in building you up as a human being and building up your self-esteem, the better. They don't, it doesn't necessarily have to be blood, and it doesn't have to be your parents. And I think Marlo also recognizes that the boys need role models. So I can imagine that Marlo is going out of her way to find role models for the boys. Hopefully she maybe even has them in therapy, yada yada yada, like just giving them different resources and avenues to develop in life and work through the issues that they may have. So it's not the ideal situation, but hopefully they can come out of it even better and even stronger and more empathetic young men that can potentially help others in the future as well. So that's it for this week's review of this week's episode. It was alright. It was alright. It felt a little bit repetitive. It seems like we're having the same arguments over and over again. So hopefully we move on to something new for next week's episode. So that's everything, guys. See ya.